The family murder that shocked the nation. The house is too quiet for midnight. The wind is cold against the windows, and the clock on the mantel ticks hard, like a heart that knows something bad is coming. Up the stairs, a young man named Ronald walks slowly, barefoot, carrying a rifle like it is part of him. One by one, he pushes bedroom doors open. His parents are asleep. His brothers and sisters are asleep. The moonlight lays a thin line across each pillow. He says he hears a whisper that no one else can hear. He raises a gun. The first shot cracks through the night, so loud it feels like the walls jump. The second shot follows. The house swallows the noise, then holds its breath. Hours before that terrible moment, the day had started like any other on Ocean Avenue. The house was big and square, with a high roof and windows that looked like eyes. To other people, it was a dream house on a quiet Long Island street. To the DeFeo family, it was home. Dinners at the long table, dad's rules, mom's soft voice trying to keep the peace, and kids moving through the rooms like sunlight. Ronald was the oldest son. He was tall, with dark hair that fell into his eyes. Sometimes he smiled like he wanted to be good. Other times, he went quiet, and the quiet stretched for hours. People saw him driving a fast car and thought he had it all figured out. But inside, he felt stuck between the boy his parents wanted and the man he wasn't sure he could be. Inside the house, the evening moved the way evenings do. Mom cooked. Dad asked about homework. Forks clicked against plates. The TV muttered in the living room. One of the younger boys left a baseball on a chair, and someone sat on it and yelped, and for a minute the whole room laughed. Mom smiled. Dad even smiled. Ronald smiled too, but his smile didn't reach his eyes. But night fell and the house changed. The rooms cooled. The sounds faded. The tick of the clock grew louder. Ronald lay on his bed, staring at the ceiling. The whisper came back, closer than ever, filling the space between his head and the pillow. He stood at the window, looking out at the empty street, the world holding its breath, waiting for him to do something he could never take back. He walked down the hall and paused at each bedroom door. Mom, Dad, Dawn, Alice, and Mark, and little John, all asleep. He opened the closet and reached for the rifle. Inside his parents' room, moonlight laid a pale line across the bed. For a second, a warm memory flashed him as a small boy crawling into this room for comfort. Then the whisper came again, and the memory snapped. He raised a rifle. When the gun went off, the night itself seemed to move. He reached for the next door, Dawn's door, and that's when he heard it, a sound from downstairs. Small, like a foot touching a stair. He froze, staring into the dark. The silence pressed down, then suddenly, the phone began to ring. Once, twice, 3 times. The sound cut through the house like a knife, each ring louder, like it was climbing the stairs toward him. The phone kept ringing, climbing the stairs like a warning. Ronald's hand gripped Dawn's doorknob, slick with sweat. Then, suddenly, the ringing stopped. Silence felt heavier than before. He set his jaw, opened Dawn's door, and stepped inside. The house seemed to swallow the sound of what followed. Downstairs, the clock clicked past the small hours. Ronald splashed water on his face and stared at the mirror. Dawn softened into morning. The dark turned gray-blue. Street lights clicked off one by one. He moved through the house like a ghost checking locks, then put the rifle away with slow, careful hands. By the time the sun stretched across the kitchen floor, the house looked normal again. Ronald dressed neatly, locked the front door, and drove away. At the dealership, he spoke to co-workers about small things, his words right but his face hollow. Later, at a neighborhood bar, he told his friends he couldn't reach his parents by phone. Something felt wrong at the house, he said. The words hung in the air like a wire no one wanted to touch. "Let's go," one friend said. They drove back to Ocean Avenue, the neighborhood ordinary in a way that hurt when you knew it wasn't. Ronald's keys felt heavy as he unlocked the door. The smell of Sunday dinners and old wood wrapped around them. "Mr. DeFeo?" one friend called. The house gave him their words back. Empty. Upstairs, they opened the first door. What they saw was not sleep. The street outside filled with flashing lights. Neighbors stepped onto porches, hands over mouths. Officers moved inside with flashlights. A detective in a plain suit arrived, jaw set, climbing the stairs like a man who had done this too many times before. Inside, the room showed no break-in, no struggle. Just victims lying where sleep should have kept them safe. Downstairs in the kitchen, Detective Miller sat across from Ronald. "I'm sorry for your loss," he said. "I need to ask you some questions." Ronald's voice stuttered as he spoke of phone calls and bad feelings. When asked if his father had enemies, Ronald muttered, "Business people. People you don't cross." The detective tucked the answer away. Later, as tired officers sipped coffee, one asked, "What kind of gun are we talking about?" Ronald, without looking up, said, "A .35 Marlin will do that." The words hit the room like a dropped fork. No one had mentioned the caliber. Ronald hadn't guessed. He had remembered. The detective's eyes caught the slip, quietly pocketing the truth. They took Ronald to the station. In a small interrogation room under harsh fluorescent lights, he sat at a metal table, pale and sweating. Two detectives flanked him. A tape recorder clicked on. They told him he wasn't under arrest. They only wanted the truth. They laid out the odd pieces, one by one, like cards in a game he was losing. Hours passed. Ronald rubbed his eyes, face lined with years he hadn't lived yet. His shoulders slumped. Finally, his voice cracked. "The voices," he whispered. They wouldn't stop. Then, with a breath that sounded like surrender, he said, "I'm the one. I did it." The tape recorder spun, marking the second the truth stepped into the light. A knock came on the door. Officers entered. The light flickered once, bright as a flashbulb. The corridor filled with heavy footsteps. They placed Ronald in handcuffs and led him away, his face blank and hollow. The boy who had been a son, a brother, was now the man who had murdered his family. The crime that shocked the nation was no longer a mystery. It was a confession. Ronald's trial began in October 1975. The courtroom was packed. Reporters, grieving relatives, curious locals, all waiting to hear how a son could murder his own family. His defense stunned the nation. He claimed voices in the House made him do it. The prosecution, however, painted him as cold and calculating, fueled by anger and drugs. Outside the courthouse, cameras flashed. Headlines screamed of demonic whispers, and an entire family slaughtered in their beds. Some painted Ronald as a monster. Others wondered if something darker had controlled him. The story was no longer just a crime. It was becoming legend. After weeks of testimony, the jury returned its verdict. Ronald DeFeo Jr. was found guilty on 6 counts of second-degree murder. He was sentenced to 6 consecutive life terms, ensuring he would spend the rest of his life behind bars. Justice was delivered, but questions lingered. Back on Ocean Avenue, the DeFeo home stood silent, curtains drawn, police tape gone. But neighbors whispered. No one wanted to walk past at night. The windows looked like watching eyes, and the house gained a reputation, a place touched by evil. Just 1 year later, a new family moved in, the Lutzes. But within weeks, they fled, claiming the house was haunted by the spirits of the murder family. Doors slammed. Strange smells filled the rooms, and voices whispered in the night. Whether truth or fabrication, their story gave the house a new name, the Amityville Horror. The Lutz family's tale exploded into books, interviews, and eventually a Hollywood movie. The Amityville Horror became a phenomenon, blurring the line between fact and fiction. But for many, the true horror was not ghosts or demons. It was what Ronald had done on that November night. Behind prison walls, Ronald DeFeo Jr. lived out his sentence. Over the years, he gave countless interviews, often changing his story, sometimes blaming voices, sometimes blaming others. But the one unchanging truth was the same. 6 lives ended and a nation was left scarred. The murders of the DeFeo family remain one of America's darkest crimes. It shocked the nation, inspired endless debates, and forever cursed the house on Ocean Avenue. Whether driven by madness, whispers, or evil itself, what happened that night ensures the world will never forget the name Ronald DeFeo Jr.